Hello everyone, and welcome to this educational presentation of my favorite way to identify high probability setups. Now this is something I've been using for a while, and it's extremely simple, but it really has an uncanny knack of getting those high probability trades that you want to get into, and it's extremely simple to apply as well. For example, let's look at this chart here. Here's a chart, an order chart in MAN. Now most people would have difficulty finding out what to do. It seems as if we're kind of going sideways. There's not much action, and we're kind of in a range, as you can see. You have the support right here, and you have the resistance. So most of you would say, well, okay, we're kind of in this range. I can either step aside and not trade this, or wait till it breaks out, or maybe take advantage of buying at the support and selling at the resistance. So let's say you decide to sell right there, thinking that it's going to come all the way back down here, then you'll cover and buy again, and then this happens. Well, today I'm going to share with you one of my most consistent strategies that actually would have not have even considered this being in range, would have actually generated a lot of buy signals. Now here's the only problem with this though. As you can see, some of these setups and signals are better than others. For example, had you taken this one, well, most likely you would have generated a loss. But had you taken these two, you would have had a nice short-term gain, but then taken another signal and another loss. So how can we filter out the bad ones from the good and getting those high probability setups? Well, this simple process I'm going to share with you today would have actually bypassed all of these previous setups and only taken this very first one right down here at the bottom. So potentially you could have captured upwards of 18 points. This is a simple process I'm going to share with you today that can capture these high probability setups. Here's the great thing about this. This process is easily applied on our platform. This is the educational platform I designed and developed with Pro Trader Strategies, and we strongly feel it really makes trading simple. So welcome once again. This is going to be a great Saturday morning presentation. My name is Primo, and if you're new to my webinars, we are all about educating you. If you've come here today thinking that I'm going to tell you what to buy for Monday or tell you what the perfect market is to be trading these days or the perfect time frame, you've actually come to the wrong place. I know a lot of webinars you've seen in the past do that, but we don't really believe in that because we are first and foremost an educational company. So what is the difference? Well, when you go to a webinar or to a website and they just blindly throw out buy and sell signals for you, what you're really doing is you're basically saying to the markets, I don't know what to do. I don't have enough experience. I haven't been trading long enough. I didn't go to school, business school. I don't know really about the market. So I'll let someone else do the work for me. Okay. Now that, in my opinion, is a recipe for a disaster because the entire industry is based on you doing that. And it's been estimated that upwards of 85% of all traders fail. So there really isn't any consistency in blindly following someone or something else, some convoluted indicator or the institutions or some trading guru in a chat room. There really is no consistency in doing that. Here's where we come in. I've been trading now for 43 years, and if there's one thing I've learned in 43 years, it's that the only way to become a consistent trader is by making your own trading decisions, not by blindly following someone in a chat room or on TV or waiting for the earnings to come out, but it's by listening to the chart in front of you, figuring out what it wants to do, and then jumping on board, going in the same direction as what the stock, the future, the currency pair wants to do. I know a lot of you are saying, well, how do I do that? I've never been taught. Well, this is where we come in. We provide you with this education, and we mentor you step by step so that you'll fully be able to understand this, and so that ultimately you'll be able to make your own trading decisions. You won't have to rely on me or anyone else telling you what to do because that's not what we do. That's not our service. What we provide is simple fundamental education that has stood the test of time. I know you're probably all out there searching for that holy grail. Well, it really does exist. Trust me, there is a holy grail, and it's called education, educating yourself. This is the only thing that lasts, and this is the only thing that will lead you to that consistency that I know you're searching for. Now, we're at the end of the year. Most likely you're nowhere near where you thought you'd be, right? I mean, last year at this time you had all these hopes and dreams about having a great year in 2019, and most likely the majority of you are nowhere near that today. That's okay. I was there as well when I first started trading. I was nowhere near all the hopes and dreams I had to conclude the end of the year. It wasn't until my mentors taught me these same things that my trading started to get on track. So this is what I do, and this is what we do at Pro Trader Strategies and Specialist Trading. We teach traders how to trade for themselves. Okay. Now today you're going to see that simple process and how you can do this for yourself. But before we begin, as always, we are first required by law to share this with you. So please take a moment to view our disclaimer. I'm going to show you a lot of performance results using this simple process, but please remember that we can in no way guarantee that any of the results I'm about to share with you will be repeated in the future. And also please remember that all examples are strictly for educational purposes only. Now, as you've taken a brief moment to view our required disclaimer, if you're looking for some more free education on a daily basis, I invite all of you to follow us on Twitter. Here's our handle right there. I would recommend copying that down because I post a lot of great free information daily, from little bits of financial wisdom to signals our strategies have generated for educational purposes only. So please feel free to follow us on Twitter. Now, as I stated in the opening statements, this is an educational presentation. I'm going to share with you a strategy today as well as the process for applying that strategy. The only difficulty is I can't give you all the rules to this particular method because it wouldn't be fair. This is one of our most consistent strategies to date. We have students trading this around the world in over 115 countries and in virtually every state of the U.S. And it wouldn't be fair for me to give it to you blindly. I will give you a couple of the rules. I will share with you what it's based off of and share with you some of the highlights. But it's really the process of how to apply it that I really want to share with you today and show you how simple it is, so that maybe you'll decide to become a student of mine at Specialist Trading. All right? It's entirely up to you, but let me just share with you this process. Remember, my goal is not to force feed you signals. It's not to have a webinar where I tell you this is the perfect market or the perfect time frame to trade. Remember, that's what everyone else does, and if that works so well, why do 85% of all traders fail? And when I say fail, I don't mean that you have a series of small losses. By failing, I mean that you literally lose all the money, the nest egg you've put aside for trading. All right? We never want that to happen. We want you to be able to come back another day. So this is the edge that I was taught with that has sustained me now going on 43 years, and hopefully it will be able to do the same for you. So since this is an educational class, ask me as many questions as possible while you have me here live. But please wait till the end of class. I differ a little bit from other educators in that I like to take the questions at the end. All right, I won't take a lot of your time here this Saturday morning. I know you have lots of things to do, maybe holiday shopping or just a lot of errands. So this presentation will last roughly about a half an hour or so. We'll reserve the last portion for any questions, okay? The only question I will answer is the most common, and that is this being recorded? Yes, it is. So if you have to leave early, or let's say you can't hear me or see the screen correctly, don't worry, we will send each and every one of you a link to this recording. All right, with that stated, let's begin today's presentation. Now, we're going to be talking about, firstly, the strategy in which to trade with. This is strategy number 4. This is the first strategy I was taught by my mentors when I was struggling some 43 years ago. Because believe it or not, I started my career on the floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange. I was a specialist. That's where we get the name Specialist Trading. And I was basically making markets in about 50 or 60 stocks. I was doing all the things that most likely many of you have been trained to do. You know, follow the earnings, look at the jobless claims, listen to a lot of gurus who've been trading for a while. They, after all, must know what they're doing, right? Look at volume, watch candlesticks, look at tons of indicators. And guess what? Nothing was working. I was following the institutions, and guess what? Those guys didn't know any more than I did. So I was really lucky because I had some mentors on the floor who were specialists themselves who taught me these same things. And the first strategy they taught me was strategy number 4. So let me share with you some of the highlights. Remember, I can't divulge all of the rules, but I'll give you some of the highlights of this particular method. It's designed for traders looking to catch momentum. Now, when I first started trading it, by momentum, we meant you were in a trade for 1 to 5 minutes because we were day traders. But we've devised ways to stay in this trade for weeks, months, even years if you'd like, okay? It's a pattern recognition strategy. So we're looking for a specific pattern that repeats over and over and over again. And this pattern, comes up in intraday trading. It comes up in currency pairs. It comes up in Bitcoin. Not only daily bars of stocks, but intraday bars of stocks, tick charts, E-mini futures. That's where I like to use it. I mainly use this with E-mini future day trading. You can see it with commodities. It makes no difference. This pattern will reoccur over and over and over again. That's why it's our most consistent method to date, and that's why we have so many students around the world trading it. Now, it only uses one indicator because we mainly rely on this pattern. I'll share with you what that indicator is. It's the 50-period moving average, okay? That's one of the rules. And the way we use that is if price is above the 50, we will only be generating buy signals. If price is below the 50, we will only be generating sell signals. That's one of the main rules of this method. Another rule I'll share with you is that once you get the setup bar, that's the bar where all the rules and requirements come into play, where you've seen if you're above or below the 50, if you've identified the pattern, if you know where to enter and where to place your stop. Then finally, all the rules are met. That closing bar, if it's a buy signal, must close in the top portion of its range, the top 25%. If it closed in the bottom, it's not a valid setup. Now, conversely, if you're looking for a short setup, if you're below the 50, if the pattern is recognized, if all the rules have come into play, a sell bar must close in the bottom 25% of its range. We cannot close towards the high, or else it's not a valid setup. So those are two of the main rules of this method, and you'll see those repeated over and over again, okay? So let's look at some strategy number 4 examples. First of all, let's look at QCOM, an older chart here, and right away let me tell you that some of these charts are going to be older, maybe 3 to 6 months old for educational purposes, because I just want you to spot this process. But towards the end of today's class, I'll share with you examples that are, just a couple of weeks old, some a few days old, okay? So don't worry if some of these are a little older than others. Okay, so we're looking at QCOM. Once again, doesn't seem like much is happening here, right? It looks like a basic kind of chart of a stock you'd like to stay away from. But first thing we want to do is apply strategy number 4. Now, this is how the process works. Now, in our online course, if you decide to become a strategy number 4 student of mine, you will get all the online rules and you'll be studying them, and you'll know how to identify a strategy number 4 setup on your own. And in fact, that's the goal. I want you to be able to identify it. But while you're learning, since I can't be there sitting next to you 24/7, while you're learning, this is why we devised the platform. We developed this as a learning tool so that you could see and check your work. So let's say you see some signals here, strategy number 4 signals. To check your work, you click on strategy number 4, click on signal arrows, and yeah, you were right. You have a total of 3 signals that were generated, and you spotted them correctly. Great. And as you can see, that was a very nice trade. Look what happened. 35 points in about a month or so. Not a bad trade. Now, we give you multiple ways for entry. You can enter at the market. You can enter at certain limit points. You can enter at certain risk-reward ratios. It's up to you. We give you multiple ways of placing your stop. You can have a mild stop, a very small stop. You can have a very wide, thick stop, so you can have a lot of risk. It's entirely up to you. And we give you multiple exits. Someone here could have taken a couple of points and said thank you. Someone could have said, well, I'm going to take 20 points. Or someone else could say, well, I'm staying in this for the long haul. Remember, our goal is not to trade for you. We're not here telling you this is where you enter, this is where you exit, and this is where you place your stop. That's up to you to decide, because that's the only way you'll become consistent. Our goal is to provide you that information so that you can make a sound fundamental choice based off things that work, okay? These are not systems. These are strategies that are about 70% rule-based, but they give you about 30% discretion. The discretion is you deciding how you want to enter, exit, and place your stop. Okay? This is why there are no statistics at specialist trading and pro trader strategies, because we encourage everyone to trade differently. We can have 2 or 3 traders taking the same setup and come up with entirely different results, and that's okay. Because if you're coming up with entirely different results, that's all right, because each one of those traders is trading according to their own means. They're making their own decision. Remember, that is the only way you become a consistent trader, not by following someone else, not even me. I'm just providing you with the education. All right, here's another example in Tesla. At this portion of Tesla, we were going straight down. Sure, in hindsight, someone could say, well, yeah, we're going straight down, but how could I have taken advantage of that? Well, once again, we teach you what to look for, the specific pattern to look for. In order to check your work, you click on strategy number 4, click on signal arrows, and then you'll be able to decide which signal you would have wanted to take. Once again, you see strategy 4 will generate a lot of signals, some better than the others. Had you taken this one at the top, you could have potentially captured 130 points, potentially. Some of our traders like to take one and just stay in as long as possible. Some will take each one for a short-term gain. Others will take maybe a couple and that's it. It's entirely up to you. Now, let's look at that original chart we looked at. Remember, in MAN, there are a lot of signals here because that's what strategy 4 does. It generates a lot of signals based off this pattern that's reoccurring over and over again. And as you can see, there are a lot that are okay, and there are some others that are not very good. You would have been stopped out with a loss. So how can we filter some of those out and take advantage of probably the best setup, which would have been right here before a nice 18-point gain? Well, in order to filter these out, we have to apply our buy-sell line. This is the 50-period moving average, but we call it the buy-sell line because, remember, if price is above the 50 and if our setup occurs above the 50, it can only be a buy setup. And if the pattern occurs below the 50, it can only be a sell setup. So that's why we call it the buy-sell line, because it's going to tell us whether we should be buying or selling. It tells us what type of mindset to have. Now, some of the most consistent setup signals, this is where we pick out these high probability ones, may be generated closest to or touching the fluid buy-sell line. So what is the fluid buy-sell line? Well, we have 4 different ways of viewing and displaying the buy-sell line, which once again is the 50-period moving average. You can see it in its most basic form right here, or pick from these other ones. Now for this particular method, let's use the fluid. All right. Once you click on fluid, the screen automatically changes colors on our platform. Here is the buy-sell line right here. Anything above, you know that you should be a buyer. Anything closing below, you know you should be a seller. But you still need this pattern to take place. Okay. So we see here that we had a number of signals, but we only want to take the ones that are closest to or touching the fluid buy-sell line, and that would be this one right here. So we're going to bypass all these other setups and only take this one, and that's where we have the high probability setup. You see how simple this is? So we're going to apply strategy number 4, and then we filter out the setups by only taking the ones closest to and or touching that 50-period moving average, or the buy-sell line, the fluid buy-sell line. It's that simple. All right, let's look at some more of these examples. Go back and look at Tesla. Once again, it generated a lot of signals. Should we take every one? Well, you can if you want to, but here's a way to filter out most of those and take the high probability ones. Click on the buy-sell line. We could take this one right here. Click on fluid. And as you can see, this was touching the fluid buy-sell line. So this is the setup you should have taken. You had about 3 days or so where it went against you, but that's okay. Look what happened after that. Okay? All right, so let's look at some more examples. Now that you understand the process, now that you see how simple it is, let's look at some more examples. And remember, once again, if you happen to join us, please wait to have questions at the very end. If you're having difficulty, I see some people may have had difficulty with sound. Remember, a lot of times that's your own internet connection. If you just log off and then log back on again, maybe that will be corrected. Just to make sure, because I see some people are having difficulty with sound, if you could go to your question and answer box, and if you hear me okay, just type in yes or Y. If you're having difficulty, type in no. And I'll be sure and make sure that our connection is fine. But I just want to make sure, because since we're going and we're going to be looking at this process going forward, I want to make sure that everyone can see and hear this clearly. Okay, so far it seems like everyone is able to. We just have a few people that have difficulty with sound. I think that's mainly your internet connection then, because the majority of you are saying, yes, you can hear me all right. So what I would suggest is just simply to log off onto your, or I should say off of the GoToWebinar, and then log back on again. And then you'll be able to most likely have a functioning sound with this presentation. Remember, once again, if you do have difficulty, we will send each and every one of you a link to this recording. All right, so let's look at some more examples here. Let's look at STND, all right? We have a couple of really nice signals down here, which probably would have been the best one, and then this was good too, but the high probability setup is down here, all right? How could we have taken advantage of that? Click on the buy-sell line, the fluid, and look how close these setups were. Now remember, this is a discretionary move. This setup was not touching. The actual bar was not touching, but it was extremely close, much closer than this one right here. So this would have been the trade to take, and potentially could have captured you 23 points to the upside in the next month. As we look at WBA, we see we have a lot of sell signals. How could we have taken advantage of the most probable ones? Well, this one at the top obviously is the best one to take, right? How could we have done that? Apply the buy-sell line, and we see that not only was this one touching, but so was this one. So you had 2 chances to take advantage of a nice 20-point swing to the downside. And you see as we go forward, do you see how this buy-sell line works so well, all right? Do you see how it just has the uncanny ability of knowing that if you're in the reddish-orange zone, you don't want to be a buyer? This is how most traders fail. If you go to a chat room or see some guy on TV, he'll most likely say, hey, listen, this has come down way too soon. We're starting to bounce. This is a great buy. We're most likely going to go all the way up here, and then it goes lower, right? Look familiar? This is the way most traders trade. They're basing their trades off of some overbought, oversold tool that shows no consistency, or they're basing them off some master trader that likes to buy at the bottom and sell at the top, but he has maybe $1 million to work with. If you have a small $5,000, $10,000 account, that's not going to help you. It's much easier if you just stay in sync with this simple buy-sell line fluid tool. All right, now here we have two different signals in two different directions. Firstly, we had a nice buy, a couple of buy signals here, and then the market changed direction and started to sell. How could we have taken advantage of buying right here? That would have been the best place to buy, and then selling right here, which would have been the best place to sell. Well, you apply the fluid buy-sell line. And you see when price was above, you had two signals generated right here at the bottom, where you could have potentially captured 12 points. Once the trend changed, and now that price is in the reddish-orange zone, you only want to take the sell signals. Now, had you missed that, I believe you could have taken this one right here, which was very close to the buy-sell line. Either way, you have potential to capture these high probability setups. Here's an example now in TGT. All right, this was in mid-November. We see here that price was kind of going sideways. We had a buy signal generated that was very close to the fluid buy-sell line, and then 19 quick points in about a week. Remember, people always say, well, Steve, the stock gapped up probably on some really good fundamental news. Do you guys follow the news, or do you follow earnings or fundamental announcements? No, absolutely not. I stopped looking at news 43 years ago. I haven't looked at news since then. Now, is that a requirement? No, it's not in any part of our strategies or methods to look at the news. But remember, we are not here to tell you the way other webinars do what to buy and what to sell and how to trade. We're only providing you with things that I have seen that have sustained me and that have worked over the course of time. So if you feel you need to look at news, that's fine, but it is in no way required. I'm still here after 4 decades without ever having looked at the news. I half the time when something gaps up like this, I have no idea why, but I really don't care. It's going in my direction. That's all I'm interested in. Now, here's what we mean by consistency. Remember I said that strategy number 4 is one of our most consistent methods. Consistency is an awareness, not that you're going to make money on every trade, but that you will have losses every once in a while. What you want is a consistent method that's able to recoup those losses, sometimes on the very next signal. For example, we had a buy signal that met this high probability criteria. It was a buy signal right on the fluid buy-sell line. Had you taken that, after 1 day, you would have had a nice gain, but most likely you wouldn't have gotten out and then been stopped out right here for a quick 5-point loss. Now, rather than throw your computer through the window and say, this Steve Primo guy's stuff doesn't work, remember, there are always signals being generated. Had you sat and sulked in the corner, you would have missed the very next setup, which was a sell signal, and it met the criteria again. It was intersecting the fluid buy-sell line. So had you taken that next one, instead of complaining about the first loss, you could have made back the 5 points and potentially captured another 20 points. So this is what we mean by 2 step forward, 1 step back. The 1 step backs are the losses that we are knowing that are inevitable. That's okay. You can feel confident in knowing with a consistent strategy, you'll be able to recoup those losses. Another consistent example here as well. We had a buy setup, really didn't do anything, and lost a quick 5 points. Does that mean that this process doesn't work? No, it just means that, for a moment we were out of sync with the market. The market hadn't decided yet what it wanted to do. A week later, another buy signal was generated. Had you taken that one and quick, licking your wounds and playing the victim, you would have potentially made back that 5 points and another 35 to 40 to the upside, okay? As we look at GH right here, 2 perfect setups. As the stock was doing absolutely nothing, going sideways, 2 buy signals are generated, touching the fluid buy-sell line. A month later, the stock's up nearly 70 points. As we see here in BIDU, stock once again had a nice run. No signals were generated until we were going sideways for a week, and then we have a sell signal. Now, most of the bars are above the 50, but look where we closed. We closed right below. So that's a valid sell signal, and it's touching the fluid buy-sell line. 2 to 3 weeks later, 50 points potentially you could have captured to the downside. As we look at FIs, or I should say, ROK, once again, the same exact process. Now, we had a number of signals generated. These ones were good signals as well, but the highest probability for the most gains was right here because they were touching and intersecting the buy-sell line. A month later, coming into mid-November, that's 50 points to the upside. Now here in EL, this is an older chart, we see there are just numerous signals being generated. Which one should you take? You can't obviously take all of these if you're not really able to be in front of your computer all the time. Well, just take the ones that were touching the fluid buy-sell line. You had 3, 4 shots there. Had you taken the first one, 70 points potentially you could have captured in a couple of months. Here's another example now in OC. As we can see in hindsight, sure, you should not have been buying this. This should have been a sell opportunity, right? So how could we have taken advantage of that? Well, we click on strategy 4. And remember, at this point, you need to study what to look for. Let's say you identified a few sell signals. Check your work by clicking on strategy number 4 tab. The down arrow appears. You click on signal arrows and then click on fluid in the buy-sell line. And now you can go through the process of seeing which signals to take in hindsight. Now, if you're applying this particular method of the high probability setups, you would not have taken any of these because we weren't touching or we weren't very close to the fluid buy-sell line until right here. These two would have given you the greatest potential and the quickest 17 points that you could have captured. FFIV, another example here. Price is below the 50-period buy-sell line, fluid buy-sell line. All right, there are no signals being generated until right here. Now, this wasn't touching, but it was very close. Had you decided to take it, you could have purchased the puts or maybe shorted the stock for a quick 18-point potentially captured to the downside. Now, we look at, this is DLTR. This was just last week or so, a couple of weeks ago, coming into December. We had a couple of buy signals generated here, and they went up for a little bit, but then we started to really come down. Now, these were not high probability setups. Sure, you could have taken them and gotten out very quickly, but if we're using this process, you would not have taken them. You would have waited, and then right here, you see a sell signal that was generated the first week in November, about a month ago. To go short, you could have purchased the puts. Nothing really much happened in the next couple of weeks until right here. A couple of weeks ago, we gapped down strongly, and you could have potentially captured 22 points. Once again, people would say, well, how did you know this thing was going to gap down that much? We didn't. All we know is that we listened to the market when price had crossed over below the 50-period fluid buy-sell line into the reddish-orange zone. We know that we should not be buying anything. See, this is where most traders make a lot of, really terrible decisions because they'll look at this and say, okay, we have a double bottom here. I guess that's strong institutional buying. This is where all the banks are supporting this right here. So I'm going to buy. And for a couple of days, you feel really proud of yourself. You think things are great. And then something comes out. You see, the market, because it was below the fluid buy-sell line, told us weeks in advance that it wanted to go lower. That anytime it bounced in the reddish-orange zone, that was actually a selling opportunity. It wasn't a buying opportunity. And prior to that bounce, we actually had a high probability setup to go short. So if you learn how to listen to the market rather than the institutions or some guy in a chat room or some guy on TV, you will have a higher probability for consistency. Why? Because you are in charge for the very first time of your own trading destiny. Another example of consistency. All right, we had a buy signal generated. This was in Tiffany, TIF. This is an older chart. It didn't work out very well. You would have immediately been stopped out with a 4-point loss using one of our generic stops. But that's okay because 2 days later, a sell signal was generated that could have potentially made that back. And actually, you could have potentially captured roughly 20 points to make that back. Here's an example now as we look at MDCO. Okay, I believe there were buyout rumors in this. This most likely got bought out. How did we know? We didn't have any idea because we don't follow anything fundamental. The only thing we followed was this pattern. And this pattern generated buy signals here, which didn't work out very well. But we're not using that setup. We're using the high probability where the setups are generated touching the fluid buy sell line. Any one of these could have generated a potential 30-point gain. Two sell signals generated here in BIDU, a sell signal here, another one here. Right at the very top of both of these little bounces could have potentially captured over 20 points. And then we look at SHAK. Remember, we said strategy number 4 generates a lot of signals, as you can see. If you want the high probability ones, they were right here. The 3 here touching the fluid buy sell line. If you had taken any one of these 3, potentially you could have captured 50 points in SHAK in the next month or 2. And as we look at TLRY, all right, once again, the same process. We have a number of sell signals being generated. We only want to take the ones touching or close to the fluid buy sell line. Had you taken these 2 up here, potentially you could have captured 55 points. If you missed those, that's okay. There was another one right here. You could have captured a good 10 or so points. And then lastly, I believe we look at UI, all right? This example was perfect. It looked like the market was going higher. We were in the blue buy zone, but no signals were generated until right here. Now, we weren't touching, but we were very close, so we had the option to take that. That would have been a very wise decision because in the next couple of weeks, in mid-November coming into December, 70 points potentially you could have captured. So let's look at some different time frames real quickly just to let you know that it doesn't just work on daily bars. You can apply it to anything. Here is a weekly chart, I believe, of Apple. Okay, same process. We have a buy signal generated very close to the fluid buy sell line, 70 points straight up after that. We have another weekly chart of MO, okay? Number of sell signals were generated. These ones would have worked very well. So we only want to take the ones closest to or touching the fluid buy sell line. These are these ones right here. 18 points to the downside. Could have had some nice put action right there, purchasing some puts. Another example here. Here's a intraday trade of Facebook on a 1-hour chart. 2 buy signals were generated that would have generated losses, okay? But if you take the high probability approach, you're not going to buy those signals. You're only going to take the one right here that was touching the fluid buy sell line, and that was a nice 7 points in the next day to the upside. Or we could look at a 4-hour chart of the euro dollar, okay? The same process applies to different markets, different time frames. Nothing much is happening. Then the euro dollar crossed over onto the reddish orange zone, meaning that you should only look at it from a seller's point of view. So you're waiting for a sell signal. According to your studies, a sell signal has been generated right here, and it's touching the fluid buy sell line. So you want to take that one, 125 pips in the next week, okay? That's over $1,200 per unit. And then lastly, here's a 5-minute chart of the E-mini futures. Here's the way I like to use it. I look at a 5-minute time frame at times. 3 buy signals are generated. These ones right here were the closest. I would most likely take these for a quick 8 points in roughly about an hour or so. That's $400 per contract. So let's recap before we go into the question and answer portion. You can ask me any question by simply going to the question and answer box and typing in what you'd like me to answer. But before we do that, let's recap this process. Remember, you want to click on our platform. This is the educational platform that makes trading this process simple. Click on signal arrows. Now, this is just as an educational tool so that you can check your work. Ultimately, I want you to get to the point where you can quickly identify a buy and sell signal just by looking at the chart. But while you're learning, click on this sell, or I should say signal arrows, to see if there's a sell or a buy signal generated. Then click on buy sell line. And when you click on the buy sell line, that's a 50-period moving average, you want to click on the fluid feature. The fluid feature will automatically color the back of the screen either blue for the buy zone or reddish orange for the sell zone. You only want to take any signal, either a buy or a sell signal, that is closest to or touching that fluid buy sell line. Now, this process can only be generated, can only be applied on our platform, the PTS Primo charting platform. That's why we say, as an educational company, it's the platform that teaches you how to trade these high probability setups. So let's tell you about a great offer for all of you. I know we're at the end of the year. We're not going to charge you an arm and a leg. We have a great discount today to get your trading on track for 2020. We're going to offer you our strategy number 4. This is the first strategy that my mentors taught me if you're new to learning or if you're having a difficult time, I believe strongly that this is the strategy that will take you into that consistency mode. You're going to get instant course access, detailed instruction. Remember, this comes with all of the different ways to apply entries, exits, and stops, and you're going to learn how to identify that pattern that occurs over and over again. So you get the complete course rules. Now, if you trade, let's say, through TradeStation or a Metastock or MT4, we will supply you with the add-ons that generate the up and down arrows. But remember, that still doesn't have the fluid buy-sell line. You can only find the fluid buy-sell line on our platform. So how can we take your trading to the next level? We're going to offer you the platform. This is the educational portal that makes trading simple. We're going to throw in 12 months of the PTS Primo charting platform so that you can see that fluid buy-sell line along with strategy number 4. Now, 12 months will cost you roughly close to $1,200. But don't worry, remember, I told you I had a great discount for you today. We're not going to even charge you anything. We're throwing in 12 months of the platform for free. So you're going to get the fluid buy-sell line free, along with the strategy number 4 tab there where you can automatically click on the arrows. You don't have to upload anything. You don't have to look through scores and scores of strategies to find out where strategy 4 is on your platform. It's just one click away. Everything is one-click access. But on top of that, we're also giving you other things that are available on the platform, like the Strength of Trend tool I developed with Pro Trader Strategies. This is a great tool that has a unique ability to find out whether a trend is running out of gas or still has a lot of momentum left in it. This will help you make your own decisions. We also have a signal scanner. So if you can't be in front of your chart all day long, if you come home from work and want to see what the next signals are for the next day, it will scan through hundreds, if not thousands, of data for you on a nightly basis, okay? Over 90 of the most prominent technical indicators. And remember, we said that fundamental news, economic reports are not required in our strategies, but that's, it's not our job to stand in the way of that. If you feel you must be using that, we supply you also with free Bloomberg TV and great personalized tech support. Most of the issues with not being able to load charts or not understanding how the platform works can be resolved in less than a day. So this all comes with the free offer. Okay, so let's break it down. Strategy number 4 costs $6.95. A great offer, okay? Now, if you have 12 months of the platform, close to $1,200. So if you purchase these separately, you're going to spend close to $1,900. We're not going to charge you that at all. In fact, we're giving you a great discount along with a great option. We're going to give you both of these, this platform for a full year, as well as strategy number 4, your course to keep, all the rules and everything, for only $6.95. That's a savings of roughly $1,164 over $1,100, a 60% discount. But on top of that, if you still have difficulty coming up with $6.95, we have payment plans. So for a small deposit, less than that, maybe a third of that, you can still be up and running as soon as today, okay, and have a payment plan set up with Pro Trader Strategies. So this is a great offer. In fact, let me just show you some last things that happened in the last couple of weeks, okay? Yahoo Finance reported that Sanofi is acquiring a cancer drug developer. They were acquiring Thor, T-H-O-R. Now, if we look at the chart here, that's where the news came out, and you can obviously see, look how the stock jumped up on the news that it was getting bought out. This is what happens most likely when you listen to other traders or you listen to some guy in a chat room or you follow the institutions. They're always a day late and a dollar short. And this is where most traders say, how come I can't get lucky and find one of these? Well, we're not promising you that you can, but let me show you how simple the process would have been that I just taught you in identifying a setup. Firstly, you know how to look for strategy 4 signals, and you would have found that there was a sell signal right here. All right, now someone would say, well, sell signal, Steve, I would have lost a lot of money. Well, using our stop placements that we teach you in the course, most likely you would have been stopped out with a loss. But remember, it's about consistency. Consistency means that there are multiple signals being generated and you have to keep on trading because 2 days later, a buy signal was generated. So you would have licked your wounds and said, okay, I'll take that small loss, but now I'll go long. And if you applied the fluid buy sell line, both these signals would have been taken. So originally you would have lost 3 points, but had potentially the ability to capture 52. You think you could have made back that first initial loss? This just happened coming into this announcement was made on the 9th. This was just a week or so ago, this last week. Well, how about this example? This was in ARQL. Same thing. Some announcement happened where this caused this to gap up. There were 3 buy signals that you could have identified. If you apply this process, with the fluid buy sell line. You see that you could have taken all three. Obviously, this one would have been the best one to take. It's intersecting the fluid buy sell line. And in a couple of weeks, coming in once again to the 9th of December, that was 100% gain. All right, this is an inexpensive stock. You would have made 100% in about a couple of weeks. So these things just happened this past week or so. A year from today, you will have wished you took this course. So why waste your more time and especially your hard-earned money on these fly-by-night systems and methods that really don't produce anything? Why not take control of your trading for the very first time? Here's how to do it. Contact Pro Trader Strategies. I would suggest personally calling them directly. They have qualified trading consultants manning the phones right now. You can call them directly at 310-598-6677, and they can structure a payment plan. So if you don't want to come up with $695, that's okay. For a small amount, you can still be up and running as soon as today. You can install the platform. You can see that fluid buy sell line, start scanning through hundreds, if not thousands of stocks, and you can start setting up and learning how to identify this pattern as early as today, all right? Now that link you see at the very bottom is the link that will take you to the sign up and information page. It's not a live link, but let me just click on here. We just posted the live link in the chat box. So if you look in the chat box in the far right-hand corner, you'll see that a live link has just been posted. Now I'm going to leave this information up here. I know a lot of you said that you wanted to ask questions. So now's the time. Just go to your question and answer box, type in whatever you're interested in, and I will be happy to answer. Someone's asking, would you ever use step 1 with strategy number 4? Hi, Ann. I assume you're talking about steps. Is step 1, you're talking about the step 1 entry. That's an entirely different program, but steps is stands for short-term entry points. So if you're talking about step 1, I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about. Yes. Okay. Would I ever use step 1 with 4? I haven't, to tell you the truth. They're kind of two different things. Firstly, strategy number 4 is a complete strategy that comes with entry, exit, stop placement, all these different pieces of the puzzle that make up a full strategy, as well as money management. Steps is just an entry tool. So it was designed for a lot of our students that say, Steve, I have a great strategy or I have a great method, but it's just my entries. I'm getting in too late, or I'm getting in too high or too low. Is there anything you can help me with? So we design steps to really, give you a much better entry point, regardless of what strategy or method you're using. So they're entirely two different types of formats and categories. So I've never applied them. You can experiment with them if you have them, and I'm not sure if you have both, but if you do, feel free. But remember, this is what we encourage. We want our students to experiment. Now, some of our students at the same time who are members of strategy number 4 in the platform, they say, Steve, I'd rather just take every signal that strategy 4 generates. I don't mind. I like to trade a lot. And is that wrong if I don't only take the signals closest to the buy-sell line? Absolutely not. Remember, you're in charge. We are not here to tell you how to trade. We're just, with these weekly webinars and with our courses, providing you with information so that you can decide what feels the most comfortable. No two traders should ever trade alike. Unfortunately, our entire business is built on people trading the exact same way. How many times you go to a chat room or trade room where they say out where you should buy, where to place your stop, where to exit, or you buy a system where it spits out exactly what to do? I mean, that is really why traders are failing. Myself included, when I first started trading, I did the same thing and nothing worked. So listen to someone who changed their way of trading some 4 decades ago and now is still here. That's what I want to do to all you. If you're having difficulty, if you're struggling, let me just share with you, this is what will make you a consistent trader. Not blindly following someone or something else, but by listening to what the market wants to do and then jumping on board, okay? This is how it works. Trust me, I've been here for 4 decades. Any new strategy or system or fly-by-night method that you think is brand new has been around before. It's just been rebranded. It's got a different name, a different educator. But it's been around. And trust me, I've most likely traded it or used it, so I know if it works or not. So I only teach my students things that have worked and things that I personally use. So if you want to experiment with a number of our different methods, that's fine. I encourage it, in fact. I just can't give any information if I haven't used that process myself, okay? Someone's asking, let's see, at what time does the program update for the next day? I believe when you're saying for the next day, I believe it should be midnight, but that would be a question for our tech support because I'm in charge of all the teaching and trading. But in terms of updating and videos and tech support and information like that with the platform, I would contact our tech support. They know all of that. I would assume right at midnight, your time zone. But it's entirely up to you. To find out if you want to, but I'm not saying you have to stay up till midnight, but it's entirely up to you if you want to wait or just contact the Pro Trader Strategies tech support. They're great, and they will get back to you most likely in the next day with that information. Okay. Someone's asking, what are the platforms? If I want to use my platform, what can I get the up and down arrows for? Well, just about all of the major platforms: TradeStation, Metastock, MT4, Sierra Charts, NinjaTrader, Thinkorswim with NinjaTrader. And I'm trying to think if I missed any. Did I say Metastock? I think so. Just most of them. And you can also use Ameritrade. You can use a number of those different data sources. So once again, this is more of a tech support question, but our platform, we've just gotten rave reviews about it. And what most traders do, myself included, you usually trade through your broker, but I use the platform on the side and I just toggle back and forth to get the educational information, and then I'll see it and then go right through to my broker when I want to enter a trade. So there's nothing wrong with looking at a couple of platforms. You don't just have to look at one set of charts. I look at 2, sometimes 3 sets of charts at a time, but I only use one for entering and the other one's for educational purposes only, okay? Okay, good questions. As we close here, I hope you learned a little bit about getting these high probability setups. Remember, this is a process that you can only get through our platform. And with this great offer, we're offering you 12 free months of the platform along with strategy number 4. Once again, I would personally recommend, excuse me, that you contact Pro Trader Strategies by calling them. There's absolutely no obligation. Just because you call doesn't mean they're going to sell you something. They can answer any question you have about the platform or strategy number 4, but most especially they can work together with you and formulate a payment plan. So for a small deposit, you can still be up and running as early as today. And one last thing I didn't mention, with any of our courses, with any of our programs, you automatically become a student of mine. You'll get my personal email address and you can contact me whenever you'd like. I was answering students' emails this morning prior to this webinar. So anytime you have a question concerning a specific strategy or a method, you can always email me to look at an example that you took, and I will be there as quickly as possible to answer your question. So this also comes with the course, okay? It's a great way to learn from someone who has been applying this for over 4 decades now. Remember, we're at the end of 2019. Most likely you didn't finish the year the way you had hoped to, but don't worry, there is hope to start out 2020 in the right direction. Take advantage of this great offer. Come on board and become a student of the strategy number 4 course, okay? As I said earlier, a year from today, you will have wished you became a member of this course. As we take a look at one last time here at the link, remember, that's the link at the bottom. I would contact Pro Trader Strategies at 310-598-6677 to ask them any questions. There's no obligation, and they would be happy to set up a payment plan with you. One last look at our disclaimer here. And as we leave today, I just want to say I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday. And I look forward to all of you becoming students of mine in the PTS Primo charting platform as well as the strategy number 4 course. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.